Good morning. My name is Caroline Fulmer, and I'm joined today by Chris Trakimus and John Torbett. And we'll spend the next 10 minutes talking about how we see the future of MIT, especially focusing on how designing a media strategy for the Astros can help MIT unlock its full potential. First, I'll start off talking about the business MIT is actually operating in and the opportunity the Astros represent. Secondly, John and Chris will talk in more detail about how this strategy will actually look like. To look at the broader picture, MIT is a sports and entertainment company that helps brands produce quality content. As such, it plays in the sports media business, which faces increased integration both across the value chain and across media types. We've distinguished three different media types: MIT's core, analog TV, linear television. Secondly, digitized, which is offline content made available for online, such as TV on demand. And thirdly, natively digital. This is content which is specifically designed for online use. While MIT is trying to move up, other players such as YouTube are trying to move down. Look, for example, at how YouTube TV was launched last week. Not only does MIT face integration across this axis, they also see integration across the value chain. For example, aggregators are more and more trying to skip the distribution to get direct to consumer. We'll talk in more detail about what this means for MIT's monetization and partnering strategy in a little bit. But for now, it's important to realize that MIT, to remain the go-to partner for its clients, has to move up from analog TV into the digital space. And we believe that the Houston Astros are a perfect opportunity for MIT to showcase how this can be done. The Houston Astros currently have an undifferentiated media presence. They, for example, only rank 23rd in number of Facebook fans, and they don't have their own app. However, the team does have two characteristics which makes it a great opportunity. One, they have several star players under 25, such as Correa and Bregman. And this means that we believe it's more likely that these young players will engage in the media strategy. Secondly, they have a very international roster, which, to the point of our previous team, means that the Houston Astros also will be able to appeal to a larger international fan base. The Astros can learn from best practices across other sports leagues. We believe differentiation for a sports team is built on three pillars: commitment, content, and connection. And our three-pillar media strategy will focus on each of these to distinguish the Astros from other teams in the MLB. Right now, Chris will take over and we'll talk to you in more detail about our three-pillar media strategy.
So our recommendation is for the Astros to pursue an integrated media strategy that builds on three pillars and has a revenue potential of $19 million. The first pillar focuses on maintaining the current fan base and focuses specifically on analog TV media. The second pillar focuses on driving loyalty and increasing revenue per fan, and this utilizes both natively digital and digitized media content. Our third and final pillar focuses on attracting new fan segments and strictly utilizes natively digital content. Now, while the Astros must continue to engage their current fan base, the Astros' initial focus should be on increasing revenue per fan. This is based on the higher revenue potential and lower expected cost than other options. From a cost standpoint, we looked at both the direct monetary costs as well as the indirect cost resulting from increased player engagement. Lastly, this second pillar represents the best opportunity for us to operationalize and digitize our current Astros media content. Next, while television remains the primary viewing media for many Astros fans, our next step is to segment our Astros fan base. So with this, we took our current 6.5 million Astros fans and segmented them across both level of fan fanaticism, from most fanatic Astros fan to most general baseball fan. And we also looked at level of digital media usage from high to low. So for example, the fanatics. These fans go to every single game. So for them, we focused on enhancing that in-game, in-stadium experience. On the other hand, we have our analog casuals. These individuals watch every game at home in front of their TV, and therefore we enhance that at-home viewing experience. Moving up, we have the digital casuals. This is our largest and fastest growing segment, and these individuals utilize a higher percentage of digital media content. As we move more towards the general baseball fans, we hit our aspiring athletes. These fans are attracted to the game because of learning from the pros and are excited about our potential digital training platform. And lastly, we have fantasy and e-gamers. Our three-pillar media strategy contains specific content that's targeted at each of these 5 fan segments. Now, with that in mind, our digital media trends that we've viewed have the ability to increase fan loyalty across all segments. So we looked at the operationalization of emerging trends, and then we looked at the value chain from both the programmers and aggregators and from the content creators. From a programmer aggregator standpoint, we're really excited to launch things like an Astros app and increased engagement through second screen social around Twitter and Facebook. From content creation in that part of the value chain, we're looking to create content around virtual reality, wearables, and enhancing the utility of fantasy sports. For each of these trends, we looked at the key observations as well as the impact to both the Astros and our target fan segments. Now, with this in mind, all of this analysis gets us to the point that MIT should grow its digital core competencies through both short and long-term channel expansion. Here we have 8 projects that we recommend the Astros to implement. For each project, we assess them across ease of implementation from most difficult to easiest, as well as alignment to MIT's core competencies from closest to the core to most adjacent. We also assess the revenue potential of each of these, which is depicted by the color of the circles. As you can see, there are 2 clusters, so we focused on a short-term implementation plan as well as a long-term implementation strategy. In the short term, we're really excited about the opportunities around launching an app for both in the ballpark and at the home viewing experience, as well as increasing engagement on social media. In the long term, we're really excited about the trends around virtual reality video, wearables, and training. Next, John will walk you through the implementation plan for a few of these examples in both the short and long term.
The new multilingual Astros mobile app will improve both the at-home and the in-the-ballpark multi-channel experience. On the left, you'll see a mock-up that we designed of the proposed Astros mobile app, and on the right, you'll see some of the key features broken down by at-home experience and in-the-ballpark experience. One of the features here that we're most excited about that we think will complement our second pillar, which is driving loyalty and increasing revenue per fan, is the ability to make in-app purchases through the Minute Maid marketplace. This marketplace would allow fans to make purchases of merchandise and food from the comfort of their seat without having to stand in line or miss a single pitch. So the Astros app is a short-term opportunity, while virtual reality and wearables present a longer-term opportunity for the Astros. Shown at the top is a time horizon for execution for our strategy of implementing virtual reality and wearables. Some of the first key elements include internal studies and a robust pilot program which will help inform the decision to make an investment in the large scale. We also took a look at the landscape surrounding this decision. Opportunities offset potential risks for the Astros' geographic location in baseball. There are certainly risks associated with pursuing a strategy like this. A couple of the risks that we identified were potential fan competition with the Texas Rangers and a disinterest in a 162-plus game Major League Baseball season. However, we believe opportunities like the recent reacquisition of 9-time All-Star and potential fan influencer Carlos Beltran, and the fact that the Houston metropolitan area is expected to grow about 67% over the next 25 years, will more than manage the risk that we've identified. And finally, we'll talk about monetization. MIT has to pursue partnerships in order to monetize its digital content. In the center, you'll see MIT with its natively digitized and analog content. And on the left, you'll see the Astros MLB. And on the left, these are opportunities where MIT has to ensure access with these partners. So once access is ensured with the partners, then MIT will need to refocus its efforts with online aggregators in order to complement its direct-to-consumer. Some of the online aggregators would include YouTube, Snapchat, and Twitter. In closing, we believe that the strategy that we laid out for you from the perspective of the Astros for MIT, of the 3-pillar strategy, the driving customer value and increasing revenue per fan, maintaining current fan base, and attracting new fan segments is not only translatable across the Major League Baseball, but across all 4 major sports in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. So just a couple questions for you. I want to dive into the financials. So both for the short-term and the longer-term strategies that you presented to us. In terms of the in-app purchases, what are some of the costs that you anticipate? It sounds like if you're doing in-seat purchases, you'll have to incur more costs to have additional staff in the stadium to actually make those deliveries and whatnot. And then from a longer-term perspective, how are you going to fund the purchase of VR equipment, and what's sort of the break-even point there in terms of adoption?
Yeah, we certainly took costs into consideration. We didn't place any specific values to that. There will definitely be, as far as the in-app purchases go, there are costs associated with having more staff, ensuring that there's wireless capability throughout the stadium, and being able to identify some of the pitfalls that might be associated with that kind of transaction. As for the wearables, I'll pass it over to Chris.
Yeah, I think for the virtual reality, it's something we're really excited about. I think the way we have our plan laid out, we have the initial pilot program and some analysis we're going to do before we do a large-scale launch because of those costs. You look at things like 3D TVs that had all this anticipation similar to some of these trends and how they fell flat. So I think that was an assessment that we made. We don't want to necessarily be the first movers in that space. We want to see where the technology goes, but have that foundation in place that when it does take off and there's that adoption trend, that we're able to jump on it immediately, and we have the capital ready to do a large-scale rollout of the technology.
I'll just say, in light of the 5 segments that you've identified, how important is the Astros having a winning team to connecting and engaging those various segments?
So that was one of the risks that we took into consideration. In the mid to late 2000s, the Astros were terrible. Mm-hmm. They set season low a season low for wins. So I think there is definitely a direct correlation into the Astros' success. Fortunately, over the last 2 to 3 years, they've been successful, had a playoff run, and are primed to continue. But that is definitely a consideration or risk that we identified.
But to add to that, I do believe that actually building that increased loyalty through your app, through getting stories there, will kind of decrease its volatility. Mm-hmm. Yes, there will definitely still be an upside if the Astros are winning, but if people are more engaged and feel close to the team, they're more likely to stick with the team when it's not going as well.
And maybe you guys could provide a little bit of the elevator pitch for me of, for the Astros, they obviously haven't created an app already. Why couldn't they do this in-house? Why do they need MIT? What's MIT's kind of elevator pitch? Is it better adoption? How did you kind of think about that as you thought about this app?
I think MIT's elevator pitch is that they have the experience with different teams across media types to help the Astros build this. And they are there for the Astros to take away that worry and provide that service.
I think just to add to that, I think for MIT to stay relevant in the future, it has to get into more of this digital space. And so we see the Astros as this opportunity to really enter that space and, as you can see here, cement ourselves in that natively digital and digitized area. I think that we're able to bring, as Carolyn said, the experts together and in-house to launch some best practices and to build off that technology in order to show what we can do with the Astros, and then, as John mentioned, expand to not only other MLB teams, but other professional sports teams as well.
You also mentioned earlier that you didn't want to be a first mover in some of the VR and wearable technology. Is that the Astros that don't want to, or MIT?
I think as advising the Astros, we would recommend, so MIT, we would advise them not to be the first movers. I think right now the technology is not where it needs to be, and there's still a lot of, as we've heard this week, a lot of different opinions on where it's going to go and when that's going to happen. I think the worst thing we could do would to be a first mover and lose that momentum if the technology shifts and fans don't enjoy the experience, and they can go down the street to another professional baseball team and maybe they are able to capture some of those fans. So I think it's prudent to stay on top of the technology, to build that foundation, to have the pilot projects, but we don't want to be the first movers in this space.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
So that concludes the first pitch case competition for 2017. I want to thank our excellent judges and the competitors. The award ceremony will be at 4:30 during the Alpha Awards, in which we'll announce the winners. Thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest of the conference.